Good morning, church. Lord, I pray that you might bless the preaching of your word. Lord, that your Spirit might illumine our hearts, that we might know what you have to say to us this morning. In your Son's name we pray. Amen. A preacher once told me a story of him growing up at a Christian school. At his school, in this class, it was customary that you could share something that was on your heart before we got into the lesson for today, some sort of devotion that was there. And the preacher said that he raised his hand and asked to come forward, and he gladly came up, and he opened up his NIV passage, and he read the following: "The words of the teacher, meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher, utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless." And then he sat down, in the sense to say that his teacher had nothing meaningful to say, as a good snotty student. The book of Ecclesiastes, and the reason I tell that story, is because the book of Ecclesiastes is a very unique book, and on a surface level, a hard one to interpret, to understand its purpose. But I love this book. If you are in the young adult circles, you know I love this book because I don't shut up about this book. Because this book, I love it, is a real book. And what I mean by that is it doesn't sugarcoat reality at all. It shows us what it means to be in a fallen world. And I hope this morning that through the study of this book, particularly in the first few chapters, that the Lord, through his Spirit, might give you the freedom to work hard and find contentment in whatever stage of life that you're in, as well as to prepare you for a time when life is mundane and almost pointless from your perspective. For that is the struggle of the preacher. And the goal for us this morning is to struggle with him, to think deeply about the problems he presents and not merely to brush them off. Today we're going to be looking at the first 2.5 chapters of the book, which we will explore the preacher's problem and his solution to the problem. Think of this as you're going on a journey with the preacher himself, the Koheleth, if you want to know where our lovely Kohe gets his name from. For the book of Ecclesiastes, in a sense, is a man struggling with his own madness, all his internal strife that is there. And we get an inside look of how he does and tries to satisfy his struggle. And we're going to break this down into 3 sections. So if you're a note taker, our 3 points will be: first, the vanity of life; second, the failure of earthly gain; and third, God's gift. The author describes himself here in verse 1 as the preacher, the son of David, the king in Jerusalem. Most people would assume that this is Solomon, for he's a king, and he tells in this book that he searches out great wisdom, which wouldn't meet that description. And if we safely assume that this is Solomon, who also wrote most of the previous book in the Old Testament, Proverbs, we will see a stark distinction between the two books. And what it seems to me here is Solomon is writing in his old age. He is looking back on his life and his toil and all of his hard work, and he's trying to make sense of it. Was it worth it? What's the point of life? For it's all vanity to him. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What does that mean? What is vanity? Well, if you go to your footnotes in the ESV, it actually gives a good definition for you at the bottom. It says that vanity is the same word for a mist, a vapor, a breath. It is to say that all is vanity is to say that life is a mist. It is a vapor. It is fleeting. You breathe out in a cold evening. The condensation makes that mist. In an instant, it is gone. And that is life. One day, you will die. And nothing that you have gained in this life will be taken with you. That's why he asked the question in verse 3, what does man gain by all of his toil at which he toils under the sun? And the answer is nothing. No matter what you do, you will die. And as a vapor is seen and gone in an instant, so will you and any memory of you. That is a hard truth. And every single human must face that truth. This is the reality our culture particularly ignores. It tries to suppress it. We distract ourselves with all sorts of entertainment. You only live once, so go eat, go drink, do whatever your heart desires. Let's forget about that. Can't do anything about that anyway. And if anyone's not convinced that life is vanity, that it is fleeting, that there is nothing that you can do to gain in all of your life, the first 2 chapters of the book of Ecclesiastes is to prove to you this reality, to break any illusion of life in which you might possess. And the 3 proofs he is going to use in this first section that life is vain is the following. It is first that nothing changes, second, nothing satisfies, and third, nothing lasts, because in the end, and you'll hear this a lot, you die. Are you depressed yet? Though this might sound depressing, and another reason I love this book, the preacher wants us to embrace that reality. Not in a morbid way, not like that emo goth person type of way, like, oh, all is woe. No, that's not what he wants. He wants us to make the reality of death the key to find the freedom to live. So let's go on that journey, and I wish to prove that to you in this book. So verse 4, a generation goes, a generation comes, but the earth remains the same. The sun rises and the sun goes down and hastens to the place where it rises. The wind blows to the south and goes around to the north, and around goes the wind, and on its circuit to the wind's return. Life repeats itself. The majority of people that have existed do not exist anymore. As people have come before us, we will quickly be gone as they were. And the only thing left of my existence, of this earth, is actually the earth in which I stand. The existence that we live is the same. The sun rises, the sun sets, the wind continues to blow and goes around the earth. It keeps going, and it's been the same since the earth has been created. There's no end to this. And if the earth, which lasts forever, is repeating the same things, which it has done since the beginning, why should man be any different in his existence? We are all born, we all grow, we, all things being equal, start families, we all work, we all die. The next generation after us, 100 years ago, if the Lord tarries in this church, will do the same thing. And in this repetitive life, nothing satisfies. Continue to go. All the streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, they flow again. All things are full of weariness. A man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing. The ear is not filled with hearing. Again, the preacher here is using the illustration of the earth to make his point. The streams, the rivers, they keep flowing into the sea, into the ocean, but the sea never stops taking from the rivers. It works, but the work is never finished. A pastor writes, named David Gibson, that there is no reason to assume that individuals should gain from their toil when creation as a whole does not. The Hudson keeps giving, to New York Harbor, and the bay gladly takes. In the light of this dissatisfaction, our work and life grows very weary. So attempt to break this repetitive nature, man attempts to make something new, do something significant. And that leads us to the preacher's last point in his prologue, that nothing lasts. What is not perceived is not new. What is perceived as new is not. It has been done before, though it may have been forgotten. And if you do something that is seemingly significant, it will be forgotten. I think of all the benches in this church, all the plaques that are there. How many of those people do you know? How many of those names do you actually pay attention as you walk by? It is forgotten. Right? There's many places just like this. Plaques memorializing the people from 500 years ago. And some of them have been removed, and we never would have known about them that have been there. Right? There is no remembrance of former things, as verse 11 states, nor will there be any remembrance of later things, yet to be among those who come after. And the new will never satisfy. It is vain. And the next big thing that we have in this generation will be lame to the next generation. So in summary, you will die. You will be forgotten, and your work won't last. Woo. That's true for everyone. That's true for everyone, believer, unbeliever. The world looks at that truth in horror. You can find many great philosophers of this age and ages past that try to wrestle with this reality, and they will ultimately come short. But again, the glorious thing of this book, what it wishes to do, is that which seems like horror is actually the key to living life. Before we get to the key, we must come face to face with the reality of the brevity of life. Right? Like the gospel, you need to know that you're a sinner worthy of hell before you understand the solution of faith through Christ. And that's what we are going to do here. We're going to understand the problem before we look at the solution. So the rest of this chapter, in chapter 1 to chapter 2, is all about the vanity, the fleetingness of trying to live for gain in this life. And this is our second point. So from now onward, until we hit chapter 3, the preacher is on a journey for fulfillment. He's on a quest. He's going to explore 4 avenues which he tries to find satisfaction in this life. And all of them fail him. First is going to be knowledge. The second is going to be pleasure. The third will be wisely living. And fourth will be hard work. So verse 12, he starts his journey, believing that acquiring wisdom and knowledge, he will be fulfilled. I, the preacher, have been king over Israel and Jerusalem, and I have applied my heart to seek and to search out by wisdom all that is done under heaven. It is an unhappy business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. I have seen everything that is done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity, and a striving after wind. What is crooked cannot be made straight, and what is lacking cannot be counted. I said in my heart, I have acquired great wisdom, surpassing all who are before me in Jerusalem. And my heart has great experience of wisdom and knowledge. And I applied my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. And I perceived that this is also but a striving after wind. For in much wisdom is much vexation, and he who increases knowledge increases sorrow. The preacher, he describes himself applying his heart to find meaning, and all that is done in the world. He wants to fill his mind so he can understand everything. He can just understand the world. And if I understand all things, then I will know and be satisfied. I want to understand all the philosophers, all the different cultures and ways of life, and I will be fulfilled. Here, this really relates to me. I love knowledge, and I understand this. If I just understood why you think the way you think, maybe I can change your thinking, or I can gain a little bit more wisdom. But here, the great irony in seeking out wisdom is instead of finding fulfillment, he finds the opposite. As knowledge came, it brought forth sorrow. It was an unhappy business. He found that to know wisdom and to know folly, to know what is good and know what is foolish, to know what is stupid, that was vanity. It was striving after wind. Why? He says this is why. For what is crooked cannot be made straight. What does that mean? In other words, no amount of wisdom and knowledge about the world means you can fix the problems of the world. Just because you know why something is broken doesn't mean you can fix it. If I were to leave church after here and turn on my car and it'd start making terrible noises and smoke would come out of the engine, I know something's wrong with my car. I have no ability to fix it at all. Sorrow, especially if I'm here late in the last one that is here. And what is lacking, he says, cannot be counted. In other words, so why is this vanity? Because all the problems of the world are innumerable. They keep going, they keep coming. Your knowledge of them only reveals actually how more fallen the world is than which you were first thought. And also, again, your inability to fix all these innumerable problems in which exist. That is sorrowful. That is sorrowful. Right? There are people right now starving across this world. And if you've seen charities asking for money to help out in this problem. And if you or this whole church gave everything that they had to solve that problem, you could not do it. We, as Lynbrook Baptist Church, as the blessed people in America here on Long Island, could not solve that problem. Maybe for a day, maybe for a week. It still would happen. So where does the preacher go from here? In realizing that vanity of knowledge, that I'm not going to be satisfied in knowing everything that's going on. Well, he turns to pleasure. Chapter 2, verse 1, I said in my heart, come now, I will test you with pleasure. Enjoy yourself. And in verse 3, he states, I search with my heart how to cheer my body with wine. My heart still guiding me with wisdom, and how to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was good for the children of man to do under the sun during the few days of his life. So he's still holding on to that wisdom, but so he can use that wisdom to find out what's really good, what's the best pleasure in the world, and that's what I'm going to do. And that's what he does for the rest of chapter 2 until verse 11. He states he's going to build mansions in chapter 4, places of entertainment. Right? Think of the dream house that you want. I'm going to make that, and I'm going to live in that. I'm going to make gardens and parks. I'm going to put in my backyard, the most beautiful backyard. I can have parties there. We're going to have a pool that is there. Maybe if I'm really rich here, Solomon, I'm going to make up my own amusement park for my kids to enjoy. That's verses 5 and 6. In verse 7, he gets servants to do all of his work for him, so it's not even him doing it. And they're going to take care of these great places. He takes for himself great possession and money, all the money in the world. He has more stuff than anyone in Jerusalem, he says. And as king, he takes many women, many concubines, which is his right in the ancient world. He's living the rock star's dream. Money and girls. But then we get to verse 10. And whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasure, My heart found pleasure in all my toil, and this was my reward for all my toil. Then I considered all that my hands had done and the toil that I had expended on doing it, and behold, all was vanity and a striving after wind, and that there is nothing to be gained under the sun. He had everything, but in the end it was vanity to him. He asked himself, essentially, what was the use of this? Right? In verse 2, and he sets up the point, letting his reader know, doesn't work. But in verse 2, he said, I said of laughter, in his search of pleasure, it is mad, and of pleasure, what use is it? In searching for happiness, he found pleasure again fleeting. Nothing gained, nothing lasted. That's why it is vain. A good day only lasts a day. Right? He worked up this pleasure, he found it, and once he found it, it was gone somewhere. That moment. In an instant. And no matter how much he worked, he could not keep that pleasure. Right? You can think of this. I remember I had a phenomenal weekend a couple of years ago. I went to saw some old friends I haven't seen in years. A wedding, it was awesome. Cheered my heart. I was able to share the gospel, it was awesome. Monday comes, that feeling's gone. It is vanity. So he returns then. So he's like, pleasure, vain. Okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to go back to wisdom. I'm going to go back that way. I think there's something there. He sees that there's value in it. Verse 13 of chapter 2, then I saw that there is more gain in wisdom than in folly, as there is more gain in light than in darkness. The wise person has eyes in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. There is gain in doing wise things versus doing foolish things. If you foolishly grab the tail of a lion, let's say, you will suffer great consequences for doing that. And it's good that you know that. It is good that you tell your children, don't put your hand on the hot stove. But the preacher, in spite of seeing the value in applying wisdom to his life, he has a big problem. Continuing, he says, the wise person has eyes in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. Yet I perceive the same event happens to them all. Then I said in my heart, what happens to the fool will happen to me also. Why then have I been so very wise? I've said in my heart, this is also vanity. For the wise as of the fool, there is no enduring remembrance, seeing that the days to come will have been forgotten, and the wise dies just like the fool. So I hated life, because what is done under the sun is so grievous to me. For all is vanity and the striving after wind. His question is, why live wisely if you're going to die anyway? The fool may die earlier in his life because of his foolishness, but I'm still going to die even if I live 80 years of wise living. Right? How many rock stars and rappers have died from foolish lives? We know this. But that's going to happen to me anyway. So why am I judging them? Why am I so killing myself in a sense? And because of this, he hates his life. He gets more frustrated because all the good decisions that he makes, and he knows they're good, it doesn't matter. He's going to die anyway. Right? If you have a great plan to go through college, if you have a great plan to send your kids to college, you choosing a spouse, you saving up money to buy a house or to get out of debt, have a great retirement plan, all those great plans, all good, wise plans, you still die. And many in this room know that personally, that death comes and ruins plans, good plans, wise plans. Death and tragedy wrecks them all. And that's why the preacher is in anguish at this point. He's more frustrated because nothing he does can rid himself of death. And in his anguish, he begins to hate all the hard work that he has done. And why does he hate it? So verse 18, I hated all the toil that is in heaven under the sun, seeing that I must leave it to the man who comes after me. And who knows whether he be wise or a fool? Yet he will be master of all, for which I toiled and used my wisdom under the sun. This is also vanity. Any great accomplishments that you make in this life, you have no control over who has them after you leave. A multi-billion-dollar business or a great empire can be destroyed when a fool comes into power of it, even though his predecessor in great wisdom built it up. There will be those that enjoy what you have made, yet that person that is enjoying the stuff you have made had no part in the sweat and tears it took to make it. So what's the point? Yeah, amen, that's true. We all know it, right? What's the point of doing all the hard work and to make good, enjoyable things? And that's what he asks in verse 22. What has a man from all the toil and striving of heart with which he toils beneath the sun? For all his days are full of sorrow. His work is a vexation. Even in the night, his heart does not rest. This is also vanity. If you're putting your value in hard work, you already know the frustration that is full in that. There is great sorrow in doing hard things, and often restless nights. Your hard work is just fleeting and gone in the end. So life is vanity, in summary. You will die and be forgotten. Knowledge only brings sorrow. Pleasure quickly fades. No matter how wise you live, you will still die. And all the things that you work for, even given sleepless nights for, will eventually go to someone who did not earn it. Where do we go from here? How does the preacher soothe his anguish and hatred of life? We get to verse 24. And almost on a snap, the flip of a dime, there's a change in tune. There is nothing better for a person that he should eat and drink and find enjoyment in his toil. This also I saw is from the hand of God. For apart from him, who can eat or who can have enjoyment? For to the one whom pleases him, God has given wisdom and knowledge and joy, but to the sinner he has given the business of gathering and collecting, only to give to one who pleases God. This is also vanity and a striving after wind. So in light of one's death, in light of the vanity, the fleetingness, the evusiveness of life, I'm saying that word wrong. Evusiveness? Whatever. You ought to enjoy, this is the preacher's conclusion, because life is vain, because it is fleeting, because you're going to die, enjoy life. Enjoy the work that has been given to you. But you might be confused. Didn't the preacher literally just say in the verse before this, in verse 23, that all of toil, all of work is sorrowful and vanity? Yes. How does he change his tune? It's his perspective. All that he has said in the last two chapters is 100% true. It's hard reality smacking you in the face. And if you wish to gain something under the sun, you will find no gain. It is all vanity, it is all fleeting if you think you can gain something of lasting value in this world. So how does one find happiness and enjoyment? It's not seeing this world as a means of gain, but receiving it as a gift from God. Right? This I saw is from the hand of God. Your food, your drink, your work are all things God has given to you to do. And they are gifts. They're not meant for you to be fully satisfied in. That's not the point why God gave it to you. Life is not something you gain. It is a gift. And that is our last point that is here. God's gift, which is life itself. You did not make yourself come into this world. You did not make yourself come to life, but God formed you in the womb of your mother and breathed life into you. And that was fully apart from you. If you strive after the things of this world and think you will find happiness in them, they will leave you empty. But instead, if you accept everything as God's gift to you, there is where you find enjoyment. Everything you have, it's a gift. Your food, your family, your talents, your ministry or charity you support or involved in. God has given them to you as a gift. You didn't earn them, and you have no say ultimately if you keep them. And the reality of death is there to remind you that it is a gift. It is not for you to hold on to. Death is God's judgment, his just judgment on sin. But it's God's gift to mankind that he uses death to remind man of what actually matters. When we accept the deep way that we are going to die, that reality can stop us from expecting too much in the things we pursue. That is from David Gibson. But the only way you can have this perspective is from God himself. Right? For apart from him, who can eat or who can have enjoyment? For to the one who pleases him, God has given wisdom and knowledge and enjoyment. Only the one that pleases God can have true enjoyment in his life. And who's the one that pleases God? Is those that put their faith in him, in Christ. Those that have been made right with God through faith. It is in those that have relationship with God that have the capacity to truly enjoy life. Because they understand that this God that made me, that is good, has given this to me. But the sinner, and this word for sinner is not like we're all sinners, like that is true, but this is someone who is actively in rebellion against God. The sinner's life lacks true enjoyment. He works, but he's not joyful. He works, he's not happy. He is given, it says here in Ecclesiastes, the business of gathering and collecting. He works, he is busy, but what happens to his work? It is ultimately to bless God's people, only to give, it says, to the one whom pleases God. But he doesn't know this. This is a sobering verse. Right? If you are not working for the Lord, all that you have and all that you're striving for is not yours. If you're in rebellion to him and you're putting all your value in the thing that I am making, you're thinking this work is for me. If I just do this, if I gain that A on that test, if I get my business super profitable, if I rise up in the corporate ladder and I get all this stuff, get the house, get the family, it's all mine. You're clutching it. God is letting you know it's not. It isn't yours. It's his. Right? He has given it as a gift to you. And if you're in rebellion against him, he will use your work for his purposes, which is ultimately to bless his people. Hence, your work is vanity and a striving after wind. In chapter 3, he continues to give us this bigger picture of life. Let us explore this more. And first, he reminds the reader of the complexities of life and the situations that they'll find themselves in if we are blessed to live many years. Chapter 3, verse 1, for everything there is a season and a time for every matter under the sun, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek, a time to lose, a time to keep, and a time to cast away, a time to tear, and a time to sow, a time to keep silence, and a time to speak, a time to love, and a time to hate, a time for war, and a time for peace. In life, we will experience all sorts of things, all sorts of seasons, as it is said here. This is probably one of the most memorable and known parts of this book, and probably the whole Bible. It's even in a popular song by the 60s band The Byrds called Turn, 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 where they put this lyrics to wars, but they left out the last verse about war because they're good hippies. But all these times are not good. I hope you realize that. He's not saying that all these things are good, but he's saying this is reality. Right? There are times in the hospital with new babies. Amen? And then there's times in the hospitals when you're saying goodbye to ones you love. There are times that bring love to overflow in your heart. And there are times that cause your heart to bring out the hatred that is there. And you should expect that you go through these different seasons. You should not be surprised by the turning and changing of the seasons of life. But what are we to do with that? What are we to do with all these different changes? Verse 9, what is man as a worker from his toil? He asks this question again. And he hopes to give an answer this time. I have seen the busyness that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. Again, repeating that from chapter 1, verse 13, about the unhappy business. That's not that anymore. This is a little more optimistic. Why? So I've seen the business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with, and he, being God, has made everything beautiful in its time. Though the world, from an earthly perspective, is constantly changing, unpredictable, fleeting, what we do does matter, for God has a purpose in it. Though I cannot see the big picture, I can trust in God that he does, and he will make everything beautiful in its time. He continues, also he has put eternity into man's heart, yet he cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. Man knows that there is life after this one. That is the natural, instinctual understanding of mankind. Life doesn't end after death. He has put eternity in a greater purpose of existence that we know. We understand that this life, whatever this is going somewhere. Yet, though, we don't understand how that works. We don't know what God is doing in the particulars of life, in the specifics of life. And we won't know what he is doing. We don't know what he's going to do tomorrow. Right? We don't know why children get cancer, as one of my families at GCA has currently. We don't know why that person you used to be close with just completely abandons you in your friendship. You don't know why that person that used to be involved in the church just leaves or leaves the faith altogether. Why does this happen? And at the same time, you find out you're having a baby, or you find out you're invited to a wedding of a close friend. You're not meant to understand how all these things are fit together. But you are made to understand there is a greater purpose. So put your faith in God that he is making everything beautiful in its time. The just shall live by faith. Right? What is faith? Faith is assurance of things unseen. As we learned about in Sunday school this morning. Right? Abraham was called to go to a land. He did not know where he was going to go. But he knew it was good, and he trusted God in the details along the way. That is the perspective for which the preacher is calling us to have. What am I to do then in this perspective? Verse 12, right? I perceive that there is nothing better for them than to be joyful and to do good as long as they live. Also that everyone should eat and drink and take pleasure in all his toil. This is God's gift to man. So enjoy your life. Look at the joys of life and embrace them, enjoy them. Do good. This is life. This is the gift of life that God has given to you in his love. That food that you enjoy after church, Lord willing, right? God made that for you to enjoy. So think about that as you're enjoying it, as you're enjoying that fellowship that is there with your family. Right? He gave you taste buds for a purpose. And he made it so it would satisfy you in an earthly sense. Right? You're not going to eat that cheeseburger or that sushi from Wild Ginger and think this is going to make me happy the rest of life, but it will make me happy in this moment as I'm hungry, if you understand it in its purpose. Right? And whatever work you have, particularly, whatever responsibilities that are on your shoulders, those are God's gifts to you for you to do good to others and enjoy it. Take pleasure in cooking that meal for your family. Take pleasure in providing the services and goods that they couldn't get unless you are the one providing it. You are made for it. He continues, I perceive that whatever God does endures forever. Nothing can be added to it, nor anything taken away. God has done it so the people fear before him. God is absolutely sovereign. What he does endures forever. You cannot change it. I cannot change God's plan. And when you see God do something, the purpose of that is that you fear him. When God wrecks your plans, your precious plans, my precious plans, and brings you low, but miraculously brings you back up, your response is fear and awe. Who is this God? For that which is already has been, that which is to be already has been, and God seeks what has been driven away. This is where we'll end. And I love this verse here. The first half of this verse, right? God is sovereign. You can't change what he wants. It's going to happen no matter what you do. Right? That fear, have that there. But then this. What is the thing that God is actually doing? God seeks what has been driven away. What is God's plan to make beautiful in its time? The thing that has been, which is, and which is to be? It's restoration. That which has been driven away, or you might say tossed out, thrown in the garbage, run out of town. God is the one, his work is the one to seek those out. This is what God has been doing since the garden. Adam and Eve were tossed out, driven away from Eden. And this is what God has been doing ever since, is seeking out a people for himself. He sought Noah, right? He sought Abraham, as we learned about this morning. He sought lying Jacob. And what does Jesus come to do? He has come to seek and to save the lost. Right? You believer in this room, Jesus sought you out while you were in rebellion against him. When you had no hope. And you unbeliever in this room, or you of little faith in this room, that's what you need to understand. God seeks what is driven out. He seeks ones like you. So stop striving after the vanities of this world they cannot satisfy. Instead, come to the one who made life as a gift for you to enjoy and seeks out those that are far from him. For this is the message of Ecclesiastes in a whole. You will die. Enjoy what God has given you. fear him and follow him.